Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here. Happy Tuesday. I hope you had a peaceful day. A lot of news, a lot of noise. So I'll help you to get into it, understand what's worth paying attention to, what to do, and I'll let you, most importantly, build your own opinion. All right. Thank you again for being here. My head is not floating. I do have a thing on. I was just like, it looks like a floating head. Anyway, let's not talk about my choices of attire. Hi, Peter. Hello. Hi, Michael. Hi, Morgan. Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you so much. And by the way, I really mean it. You being here and commenting and, being your wonderful selves really makes all of this worthwhile. Because to put this together, just this 1 hour, with all the news and the newsletter that I send out, it requires so many hours of diving into this news cycle, which often feels like getting into a shithole and trying to figure out what's worth it, right? So going through this dirt, all this nasty stuff, and doing this every day really, it's annoying. It's a lot. And you being here is what makes this worthwhile. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you, every single like and subscription and everything. So we became partners. The Onest became partners of YouTube. So every like and share and subscription does matter and help me run all of this. So I really, really would appreciate it if you could click a button, which doesn't cost you much. Okay. So now let's get into the news. Let's get to it. I mean, let's just go through it. No way to describe it. We're going to get national news, global news. So first, let's start with major headlines, get then into quick news nationally, internationally, and then explore what happened in history today. And happy Independence Day to Mexico. I do have a video of your leader with a beautiful rope and everything. So that's how we're going to round up the broadcast today. Deal? Okay. So Bondi and Rubio, they talked about free speech and deportations. Pamela Bondi here tweeted, and then she spoke about it. She said, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It's a crime. For far too long, we've watched the radical left normalize threats, call for assassinations, and cheer on political violence. That era is over. And then she brings some USC commercial code, which I studied because I studied law, believe it or not. It's a stretch. It's an interpretation. It's a stretch. Then I just recently saw she gave an interview saying that the radical left guy killed Charlie Kirk. I'm not FBI, nor I'm an investigator, but from what I hear, there is no direct connection. But well, now, furthermore, now ahead of UN General Assembly, and for those who are not familiar, this is the week where all heads of state, all delegations, bunch of diplomats are traveling to New York City to attend, of course, the official programming at the UN General Assembly, Security Council, Social and Economic Council, a bunch of stuff, right? And I'm going to take you with me, so please subscribe. We have 27 events to cover next week, darling. And we're starting this Thursday by attending the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, hosted by Brazil. I'm accredited by the government of Brazil. We're going to be there from morning till evening, and I'll show you everything. Okay? So that's where everybody comes, to New York. New York is in the United States, last time I checked. So Rubio gives an interview, our Secretary of State / National Security Advisor, where he talks about America not willing to host foreigners who celebrate the death of our fellow citizens. I do have a video which really struck the note with the international community. All of them started requesting, like, are we going to enter? Like, they have diplomatic passports. Like, can we still travel? Can we not travel? Are we going to face the situation like normal people where our phones will be searched through? Here's Rubio.
We are not in the business of inviting people to visit our country who are going to be involved in negative and destructive behavior. Okay, so why should, if I invite someone, if we invite someone to visit the United States of America as a student, as a tourist, as whatever, then they have a different, the standard they should be held to is very high. We shouldn't be bringing people into this country. We should not be giving visas to people who are going to come to the United States and do things like celebrate the murder, the execution, the assassination of a political figure. We should not. And if they're already here, we should be revoking their visa.
I would like to define what is a political figure, because if I never considered myself political figure, but am I? Because I'm talking online. Anyway, when he said, and others, right? He talked about students and tourists and others. And those others are diplomats. And if you have a diplomatic passport, you should be permitted entry, especially when you are coming for such an important event and gathering as United Nations General Assembly, the high-level assembly. So all of them are now sort of scrambling to figure out, are we going to be embarrassed? Because it's also very embarrassing to travel to a country and them going through your phone and telling you should not be permitted entry because you're, not aligning with our freedom of speech, so to speak. Now, Kash Patel, director of FBI, he was being questioned. So he faced tough questions, and I want to start. Yes, he was brought in to answer questions about the Charlie Kirk case. But he was also asked about Ghislaine Maxwell and why she was transferred to this low-security prison, which has yoga and other wonderful exercises. And he was asked by Senator Adam Schiff about all of this, where certainly he reacted in a very interesting way. Take a look.
She's transferred to a minimum security prison not suitable for a sex offender like herself. Who made that decision and why?
The Bureau of Prisons.
The Bureau of Decisions made it in
Prisons.
The Bureau of Prisons decided on their own, without any consultation with Blanche or anyone else, that they were going to suddenly, after this interview, completely unrelated to this interview, completely unrelated to anything she said, move her to a prison not suitable for a sex offender. You want the American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No, I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of
you're
inmates.
not in the weeds?
What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
And you're right, Michael. Michael says, I sense an embarrassment coming with UN diplomats. I think so too. I do guesstimate some type of a reality show segment on diplomats not being let in, and that used as more, right? Hi, Ignacio. Yeah, listening to this on my way home. Yes, Corey. I'm going to show Corey in a second. Adam, yes, Adam is here. Corey is about to speak. So speaking about Cory Booker, FBI Director Kash Patel, of course, appeared, as you saw here, in the Senate Judiciary Committee with the second hearing scheduled in the House. He's also going to be there on Wednesday. Patel, defending his leadership, said that it's disgusting that people would undermine my experience and that of my deputy, Dan Bongino. Now, criticism, let's talk about criticism. It centers on Patel's handling of Charlie Kirk assassination investigation. So first, Patel dined at Rao, right, in New York. It's a very fancy restaurant. It takes time to get your table reservation and whatnot. So he was wining and dining the night Kirk was killed, incorrectly then posting on X that a suspect was in custody, then later released. The next day, he flew to Utah, appeared with Governor Spencer Cox, and then later praised Trump for supporting the FBI after an arrest was made. Now, media coverage has been harsh, and I'm going to quote Fox News, who says, quote, "Knives are out for embattled FBI Director Kash Patel despite Trump's support," end quote. And then came the exchange that Ignacio was hinting on between Patel and Cory Booker. Now, it has nothing to do with the case. It has no value in terms of information. What it shows you are the antiques used. Take a look.
Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you loose. This may be the last time I have a hearing with you because I don't think you're long for your job. But I'm going to tell you this. I pray for you. I pray for you that you can step up and defend your oath, defend the Constitution, and do a much better job of defending this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to say anything?
Yes, sir. That rant of false information does not bring this country together. If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is my time.
I follow you on your social media posts that tear this country apart.
To address your falsehoods.
Oh, you can try all you want to not take responsibility for what you have said. Sir, you're making a mockery of this committee. Sir, you don't tell me my time is over. The people of New Jersey tell me what my time is. You can't lecture me.
You can tell me my time's over.
You may be in charge of the FBI,
I'm not going anywhere.
but I am not afraid of you.
Mr. Chairman.
Not afraid of you.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Again, as I mentioned, it has nothing to do with factual information. We didn't get more about the case. What we found out today about the case, in addition to everything going on, is that the shooter would be facing death penalty. He's now being charged, well, if all of this is proven, charged with aggravated assault, and then ultimately would be facing death penalty. And this was confirmed by the governor of Utah. So that's about it. Have we learned much? Not really. Have we seen a lot? Yes. Are there a lot of clickbaity things? Yes. Again, does it matter for you? Will it help you to make better decisions? Not really. But it shows you the state of affairs. Now, the information that kind of matters is that Venezuela is on edge. So Trump spoke about U.S. naval strikes off Venezuela, hinting that the next attacks would be on land. Now, he claimed that there are no ships anymore, and so it means, according to him, no drugs are coming in. Well, let's note here that the most maritime cocaine trafficking occurs in the Pacific, not in the Atlantic, where they are bombing those ships and where they stationed all the troops. So let's just call a thing here for a second. But here's Trump talking about it. Take a look.
But we have noticed that there are no ships in the ocean anymore. We're seeing that there's like no ships, when the first one we went, there were hundreds of boats. Now there are no boats. I wonder why. Meaning no drugs are coming across. Probably stopping some fishermen too. I mean, to be honest, if I were a fisherman, I wouldn't want to go fishing. Just a nice, let's take a little trip, because I'd say, man, if maybe they think I have drugs downstairs. I don't want that. I think the fishing business has probably been hurt. But there are literally no boats. This was a boat, and we were surprised to see it. Now, what does that mean? That means there's no drugs coming by sea. But they do come by land. And you know what? We're telling the cartels right now, we're going to be stopping them too. When they come by land, we're going
to... Well, now back to facts. U.S. strike on Venezuelan boat killed 3 people, the second this month. Now, can we use this speech here that I just showed you as a confirmation that the strike occurs when somebody from Pentagon thinks that they may have drugs, and because the president is bringing up an example of a fisherman, which would have then nothing to do with the military of Venezuela, he wouldn't be proven to be a terrorist or part of a drug cartel, but because they think he might have something, he would be struck. So it sort of brings you inside the approach that is used here. And it kind of aligns with the facts that we, in fact, don't really know who were those first 11 people bombed and killed on the first boat, and now 3 others on another boat. Now, Venezuelan President Maduro condemned the strikes as a crime, and then he said America is preparing for military aggression against Venezuela. Now, it looks like it, but can we, right? Because factually, yes, we have 140 Tomahawk missiles, F-35 fighters, Ospreys, Harriers, and 2,000 Marines. So, yeah, they're all poised on combat readiness, and they put on a high alert. But can you storm and invade Venezuela with 2,000 troops? That sounds very inadequate, right? So we don't really see, well, we meaning like people with brain, we don't really see this as enough material for an attack, but they're there to, kill civilians because they think they would be aligned with drug cartel. Why is now United States policing this part of the Atlantic where we, gonna decide who's gonna be fishing and using a boat or not? We're like, cutting off their waters from being used by civilians. Like that, just a bunch of questions here. But as to peacemaking, I want to show a couple of videos here. So Trump was speaking yesterday when he was signing this memorandum to send troops, National Guard troops to Memphis. Today, they sent so many press releases that I decided not to share because there's a lot of mis and disinformation in them. Ultimately, the last released statement was that Memphis, Tennessee is welcoming National Guard, and they're so happy and ecstatic about all of this operation. But first, this morning, they began by talking about how horrible Memphis is and it's overtaken by crime and yada, yada, yada. Okay? So, when he was signing this memorandum yesterday, he was talking to the press, normal setting, Oval Office, where he then talked about those protesters that he faced when he went to eat at those seafood places when Poland was invaded by Russian drones. Let's call a thing, okay? So that's what he wants to do with them. Take a look.
And a woman, in many cases, women, you can see they're professional agitators. I had one the other night. I had 4 the other night, all in one group, total phonies. I started to scream when I got into a restaurant, something with Palestine. And I said, well, I'm doing a great job for peace in the Middle East. I should get lots of awards for that, right? With the Abraham Accords and everything else. But a woman just stood up and started screaming. And she got booed out of the place, too. There were a lot of people in the restaurant. I went there to show how safe, and it was safe. I mean, the woman is just a mouthpiece. All she was a paid agitator. And you have a lot of them. And I've asked Pam to look into that in terms of RICO, bringing RICO cases against the criminal RICO, because they should be put in jail. What they're doing to this country is really subversive.
So they should be put in jail. Freedom of speech. Again, we started today about freedom of speech and deportations. And it's sort of like none of this is defined legally as freedom of speech. But let's continue. This morning, Trump was leaving to London. They just landed. The president and the first lady landed in London, still looking exactly the way they left, exactly like this. They just arrived there. I shared the schedule where they're going to be laying wealth to the tomb of late Queen Elizabeth II. White House is not really strong on spell check. And they, going to be paraded around, essentially. And it's from 8 in the morning till very late night. Let's see what type of coverage we're going to get from London, because it's 2 days of a lot of activities. And lately we saw some, facial activities during very short events. So let's see what we're going to get from London. But essentially, before departing the White House and going forth with on Marine One, Trump was talking to press. First occasion, he was asked about Ukraine and how he's planning to finish this war. And again, he went into this rhetoric that he will have to sit down with Zelensky, because Zelensky and Putin, for some reason, maybe you know the reason, don't really like each other. Take a look.
Also, those are two people, Zelensky and Putin, that hate each other. And it looks like I have to sit in the room with them because they can't sit in a room together. There's great hatred there. But no, that...
But why is the real hatred there? Because Putin is bombing civilians. And I have footage here that I'm going to show you once we're done with this videos. Every day, killing civilians, targeting civilians in places where civilians gather. We're not even talking about war in the way we know the war is, right? Invading the military sites that are essential for the army and for the purposes, right? And Ukraine is goddamn defending itself. Let's not forget that little fact here. But then he was talking to an Australian reporter whom he actually threatened because he dared to question Trump's business doings while president.
That is inappropriate, President Trump, that a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. Your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone. Well, go ahead, John. Maybe you can set a nicer tone.
When the UAE does a deal, what does it want in return?
Quiet.
Mr. President, what are you hearing about the operation?
That's an international reporter. Is he also radical? Whatever, right? So don't really ask the leader questions the leader doesn't want to listen to, because then you will be summoned by your leader. Well, in Australia, obviously they have prime minister who's coming, well, I guess next week, which is kind of questionable. I mean, I understand that everybody's gathering for United Nations General Assembly, but this is DC, this is New York. I would guesstimate for them to meet in DC, but we will see what will happen. As for now, we haven't heard much announcement in that regard, but that maybe gives a clue to Australian diplomats that yes, they will be let into the country. Now, Putin came to witness this Zapad, which is translated from Russian as West, 2025 war games, the joint military exercises between Russia and Belarus and India. And yes, today Trump congratulated Modi on his birthday, tweeted about it, and said, I thanked him for being so wonderful for solving the war between Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, India is training with Russian troops and Belarusian troops that are practicing how to essentially invade Poland and cut off the Baltic states from the other NATO countries. It's a doozy. Okay, sometimes I wish I would understand English or anything. So back to Putin. Yesterday, we saw that U.S. Air Force representatives, officials were there, thanking Belarusian folks for inviting them. And then they're there to provide advice to Russians and Belarusians how to essentially invade Poland. Fantastic. So today, Putin came there, dressed in fatigues. He arrived. Take a look. The little man was there. And I'm not talking about his height. Listen, there's so many men and women of all different sizes and shapes. He is little in character. He has no decency. He is a murderer. We call him a moth. Okay? So, little man in all regards, aside from physical. And whatever. This has to be PG. So he arrived, and then he personally shook hands and thanked all those international representatives who came there to give Russian army advice on how to invade NATO. So I'm just calling a thing a thing. And those representatives were from Turkey, from Hungary, and United States Air Force. Take a look. Well, and then he was touring the facilities. Take a look. According to him, now those drills are taking place at 41 training grounds across Russia and Belarus. We're not talking about the border with Poland. Get this. 41 training grounds across Russia and Belarus with 100,000 troops mobilized. As a result, today, to counter Russian threats and in response to large-scale Zapad 2025 military exercises taking place in Belarus, Spain and Germany decided to deploy additional troops to Poland. If you know anything about history, if you didn't really fall asleep, knock yourself out in history class that was talking about World War II, I had my history classes weird. I started in Ukraine, it continued in Germany because I grew up there, so I know that part. And then, of course, when I was in the US, I hear what folks are learning here. So I have a lot of views on that. And history also is shaped to somebody's, intentions and opinions. But regardless, let's just put facts together, not opinions, facts. 100,000 troops, Russian and Belarusian troops, are training. They get advice from Hungary, Turkey, and US on how to proceed. How they want to proceed, according to them and according to Putin, is invasion of Poland, annexing Baltic states from NATO flank. Right? Good. Other side, you have troops from Germany and Spain and Polish troops. 40,000. We don't know how many from Spain and Germany, but now on the border of Poland. Another fact, Russia did fly about 20, well, some people say 20, 22, 24, but around 2 dozen, let's say, war drones, not commercial drones, war drones, Shahed drones, bigger than several people gathered together, into Poland. They were flying a drone, and 2 folks were detained yesterday, flying a drone over the prime minister's residence in Poland, in Warsaw. They also flew a drone to Romania. And they're never there on an incursion. They're never there because they lost their way. What they're doing is they're seeing, is there a response, the timing of the response, the directions from where the response coming through, because what? Because next time they will know how to avoid it. They're programming the drones. The drones are programmed. They run on software. Yes? Good. Now, sanctions. So yesterday we discussed that Trump is blaming Europe for facilitating, Russian economy, stop buying, or tariff China and India and everybody, knock yourself out economically, and then I will consider sanctions. Meanwhile, obviously that is not going to happen, so there's no sanctions from the US. But we were so awaiting this 19th package of sanctions coming from European Union. It should ban visa entry to EU for Russians. This will screw them because those elites, they have not just vacations to go to and Hermes bags to buy, they go to their houses. There's people who work on national television in Russia who talk about bombing Europe, taking over London and Paris and Berlin and Madrid. They do have houses in Italy and Spain and France and England. They do have legitimate equity, and they certainly want to visit it. And so, this 19th package, that's going to knock them out. So elites are going to push Putin to end this special operation. Wonderful, right? Well, Politico reports, having spoken to somebody from European Union, the Parliament, Commission, who knows what's up, they saw documents, that the 19th EU sanctions package against Russia, once scheduled for September 17, has been postponed indefinitely. The issue was, the issue was removed from Committee of Permanent Representatives' agenda. Pressure is now mounting on Hungary and Slovakia to reduce dependence on Russian oil. A ban on EU visas for Russians was blocked by Greece, Italy, Spain, France, and Hungary. Trump blamed the EU for failing to align with US sanctions, while EU now blamed Hungary and Slovakia for obstruction. Okay, bad boys, what you gonna do? They come for you. So, okay, moving on. Bunch of you asked, okay, Hungary, we understand, Orban, right? Greece, Italy, Spain, okay, vacations. But France. Now, that is how this is connected to my Curating Culture series. I'm not promoting it. The one that I'm putting here. I'm not doing anything accidentally. I talk to people. So I spoke off the record with politicians in Europe, in the US. I spoke to directors of museums. I asked what, because we hear about executive orders, memorandums, but we don't really hear about, the meat of the deal, right? And so what I hear is, specifically in France, there's divestment into cultural programs, in arts. The same stories in Italy, the same stories all across Europe. Now, when it comes to US, they're just scared because exhibitions are being banned. And so in order to make some type of money, they're now negotiating with China that they will be exporting those exhibitions. So Chinese can, and their tourists, can bring some cash into US institutions so they can still, employ people and virtually, somehow exist. Now, when it comes to Europe, they rely on tourists. So far so that France and Italy and Spain and all those, they are increasing the pricing for entry into museums, into programs, because they want to funnel this money into keeping those arts and cultural institutions afloat. Why? Because they're spending this 5% GDP into military and defense. And they understand that this is a lot. And for France, 5% of their GDP is a lot. Now, Poland and Romania, they spent, and Latvia, Lithuania, and all, they spent way more than 5% by now because they're very close and their economy is not as strong as French economy. So all of that is tied together. So the Curating Culture project is there to document what the hell we still have, to put it blank. So our generations who haven't seen it yet, but also most importantly, future generations can have just the data and, some type of library of footage to learn what the hell we had. Because ultimately, and that's what I hear from both US and from European museum directors now, that it's a matter of time till they will start shipping stuff to China, exhibitions and arts and whatever, because they're willing to pay a lot to become this cultural target for tourists and whatnot. For instance, Louvre, right, in France, recently opened in UAE. Another part about to open in China. And so what they do, they ship exhibitions and they do this type of a pop-up that is there for a few years, and it shows everything that Louvre has, right? They're also about to charge extra entrance if you want to watch or look at Mona Lisa. So that specifically. So tourism, right? And so for that reason, France votes against Russians because they bring cash in, which is not an excuse. Now, another stupid story. Sorry, but Romania, right? They had the war drone, Shahed drone, traveling all across Romania for about 50 minutes. Have you ever lost yourself and walked around for 50 minutes just because you're like, hey, where am I? In what state should you be to do this? And now this is a programmed drone. So now Romania's president, Nicu Sordan, remember the one we cheered for because he was running against this Russia-backed up far-right guy. So he said, our country, this is a quote, was the primary target of hybrid attacks orchestrated by Russia during 2024 presidential elections, where he won, which included such findings as 85,000 plus cyber attacks on electoral infrastructure, Social media disinformation and micro-targeting campaigns, direct support for pro-Kremlin candidate. Dan stressed that Romania will firmly defend its sovereignty and institutions. And now what he said to Ukraine. Remember yesterday we talked about closing the skies over Ukraine, which would mean those who share the border with Ukraine just being on high alert, them being Air Force on high alert to, escort any type of targets over Ukraine out of Ukrainian territory. Yes? So he says Romania rather does not support a no-fly zone over Ukraine, warning it would mean entering the war. And that Shahed of your head wasn't entering the war. And 100,000 troops practicing at the border was not entering the war. Okay. All right. Now, Poland is on high alert. Poland revealed it faces 50 Russian sabotage attempts daily. 50 daily. Targeting hospitals and water systems. Now, this was confirmed by Financial Times. Warsaw is boosting its cyber budget to 1 billion euros. Real estate agencies report a surge in Poles seeking property abroad. Now, after the drone attack, inquiries for Spain have tripled. So folks are realizing we gotta make moves physically. Zappa was a bigger production than I thought. Yeah, Zappa, right? Sure. John, hi John. Yes, Putin huilo. I agree. Morgan says, why France? But then Saint-Tropez. Yes, we talked about. Okay. Now, Trump was asked by a Ukrainian journalist about the Patriot systems that he promised to buy. Now, it's not just promised to buy. Biden allocated money and the Patriots to be sent to Ukraine, right? 10 of them. And then it was said that, no, we don't have them. And then Germany will buy 3 of them. And then, no, Germany will mix with other countries and NATO allies to buy them. But when asked about it, Trump today sort of redirected the question. Take a look.
Turkey was targeted today, just now. You announced 70 Patriots in Ukraine 2 months ago.
Where are you from?
Ukraine. Yes. Will they come, and do you know when they will come? The Patriots.
What will come?
The Patriots. You announced 70 Patriots to Ukraine 2 months ago.
Look, let me just tell you, I love Ukraine. I love the people of Ukraine. That's why I asked. I thought that was a little Ukrainian accent, but the country's in serious trouble. It should have never happened. It's a war that should have never happened. The country's in very serious trouble, but I'm going to get it stopped.
I hear a little Ukrainian accent there. He says, the war should have never happened. Well, I cut it short because it's noisy, but he says, good, listen, I want to say I love Ukraine, but your country has serious problems. This war should never have happened. I'm confident that I can stop it. In the last 8 months, I have stopped 7 wars. I thought it would be easiest with Ukraine because I know Putin. It turned out, no, there is extraordinary hatred between Zelensky and Putin, but we will stop it anyway. Stop what? And how? Now, Zelensky responded to all the attacks that did happen today. So he condemned Russia's latest strikes, and this is in 1 day. Zaporizhia, homes and infrastructure hit overnight. In Kiev region, drone strike on a civilian logistics hub. Take a look. And then in Kharkiv, my birth city, a drone strike hit the National University of Pharmacy. Take a look. And what they do when firemen come to help, right, to aid those affected, then they target them. Zelensky says, quote, until Russia feels truly significant losses, above all economic losses, it will continue to avoid genuine diplomacy. Strong sanctions are needed. Strong tariffs are needed. Strong protection of life is needed. Ongoing artillery in Kherson, bombs in Sumy, Kharkiv, and Donetsk. which I didn't show you here. Now, I will be attending a meeting with Zelensky. This is a crime in Crimea. Crimea talks sort of, like we have the Rammstein about like the entire help for Ukraine or for Ukraine itself, mainland. And then this is Crimea Network. So with Zelensky, and I'm invited to attend it on the 24th. So I'll report from there. As promised, I'll take you with me. Now, Denmark in the Arctic. Denmark will purchase Boeing P-8 Poseidon surveillance planes to monitor Greenland and Faroe Islands. Defense Minister of Denmark said, quote, "We need a much clearer picture of what is happening in and around Greenland and Faroe Islands," end quote. And this is a very good question. I would extend this question to what is going to happen if you are invaded, who's going to protect you, because NATO is caught with their pants down. Now, Canada, please don't disappoint. Canada is reviewing its plan to buy 88 F-35s with a decision expected September 22nd. September 22nd is when I'm meeting Prime Minister Carney. I'll take you with me. The US warned of serious consequences if Canada cancels. Sweden's Gripen, those jets, are under consideration as an alternative. Don't disappoint, please. When you talk about serious consequences, like what? Like serious, like what? Like what? Tariffs on Canada? We saw it last season. Okay. New weapons pathway to Ukraine. Now, seeing is believing, but I got to report it because I hear it. The Trump administration approved the first shipments under the priority Ukraine requirements list. And this is interesting because they say, there's like a big news thing, they approved. Now, factually, what it looks like is Ukraine compiles a list of urgent needs. It's like the full menu. They send it to NATO, and NATO allies pull funds, right? They look for what they're going to have in their stockpiles, and they look like, okay, I can send this to Ukraine now. All right, good. And then they ask Washington, D.C., what are you going to charge for this? Because I want to send this to Ukraine. What are you going to charge me so I can replace it? And DC puts a price tag plus 10%, because who doesn't like gratuity? No, right? No tax on tips. So, and then they have to pay DC to ship to Ukraine what they already have, hoping they're going to get it back from DC. This is what it looks like. That's the priority Ukraine requirements list, Pearl, so to speak, fancy name. But that's how it looks like. Altogether, 500 million in arms shipments may be dispatched soon. Again, this coming from the stockpiles of our allies. In China, Chinese Coast Guard ships fired water cannons at Philippine vessel near, this name I'm going to butcher, Hainan Island, escalating tensions in disputed waters. And this is what China did. Take a look. I have a good question. Hi, Tony. Tony says, Olga, do you have any idea what is really going on with NATO? So disappointing, or at least ideas you can put out. I want to start with the first meeting of Rutte and Trump at the Oval Office in DC, which was pretty recent after, or very soon after, Trump came into power. And Rutte off camera, well, it wasn't really widely reported, but I did report on that. He thanked Trump for helping him to become the head of NATO. This was, and he did it like 5 times, and throughout speaking with Trump, and thank you for advocating for my candidacy, yada, 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 which really struck me in a way where, why are you thanking him? First of all, he wasn't president. How did he help you to become, right? And if you recall, when Stoltenberg was leaving, there was not really a fight. They had few candidacy. Kaja Kallas was considered. By that time, she wasn't vice president of EU Commission, or European Commission. And she was considered, but she was seen as radical, right? And she speaks very from Latvia, but she speaks Lithuania, Latvia. I'm brain freeze on that part. I'll look it up. But she was very straightforward as to what NATO has to do to fight off Russia and to show them their place. And now she gives speeches and she's like, this is what Russia does. That's how they negotiate. That's what they do. So for NATO to have such leader would be fantastic. But somehow she was then seen as radical because I was attending this Ramstein meetings that are co-hosted with NATO and allies. And of course, from that regard, our defense, our Secretary of Defense was Lloyd Austin. He was hosting it. And then somehow those messages came through that Rutte would be fantastic because he managed to be Prime Minister of Netherlands for such a long time in the times where the government did change. But so he was this chameleon who could adjust to stay in power, which would be fantastic to maneuver and sort of unite NATO allies. And that's what I want you to adopt as a perspective. Rutte comes, becomes Secretary General. And first he listens to Trump, what Trump wants. Trump says, you got to do 5% GDP. So that becomes the message of NATO. And Rutte travels everywhere. And I get all the stops, documented in emails from NATO. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. And he's demanding 5%. But he ties it to Trump as his personal achievement. And so then we get familiar with the rhetoric where NATO Secretary General is sort of the messenger for President of the United States, which was never really the point of NATO. NATO is a defense alliance and all that. And so then a lot of harsh questions, shoulda, woulda, coulda, been answered at the NATO summit, which was in the summer of this year. On the line were sanctions on Russia, preparation for eastern flank of NATO, defending the Arctic, defending the Indo-Pacific. How are we going to do it? Are we going to spread ourselves thin? What are we going to do if they come for you? And remember when Trump said he's bored, he's getting bored, he left the G7 early. And so the entire NATO summit, which is supposed to be over several days with a lot of meetings and harsh questions to be answered, was reduced to a 90-minute meeting of praising Trump. That is also where this whole rhetoric of daddy came through, where Rutte said, well, Trump, he sees those as babies, kids fighting. He's waiting until daddy comes in. That's where the daddy's rhetoric came from. Again, the same NATO conference that was reduced to 90 minutes. And so now we go from here. Again, Rutte is traveling everywhere. You got to spend more. And he adopts this idea that somehow, which is not true, United States did sponsor everybody in NATO, and United States has been used and abused for decades. Now, if you circle back, the NATO was created as a defense alliance. It was, of course, headlined by US because we thought, Europe is fighting constantly, so let us secure the peace. This led to United States being able to build military bases all across Europe, right? And have direct access to all these countries to help them stay in peace. That was the whole idea. So US did spend a lot, but those military bases are co-sponsored and it's the entire operation. So now to say that this whole idea was sort of abusing United States, well, then we have to run, the income and spending and profits and what really went on. But with now Trump openly aligning with Russia, right? Coming to provide advice, doing all this. Those NATO bases that are American represent a direct threat to Germany, to France, to England, everywhere, all across Europe. Yeah, you do have Canadian forces in Latvia, right? Not just training forces there, but really securing the foothold. So you do trust them to be legit. But the access to all these countries, like Germany has several military bases, that together with the US. That represents a threat. So Europe is caught with their pants down, literally. They can't really say, Trump, you're full of it. Whatever you're doing, we don't need you. Leave. Trump is not really interested in leaving. Maybe he personally is interested in leaving NATO, but his advisor, in France, Putin, is really against it because Trump is needed for veto the Article 5 and everything that NATO really wants to do against Russia, because he's there to pull the veto, right? Same story as Israel needs US in the UN, pull the veto on recognizing Palestine as a state, right? Even China, Russia all voted, in favor, but they knew that US would vote against it, so they used this possibility to vote in favor of Palestine being seen as a state to get some positive PR. But that is why Russia needs US inside NATO. Shouldn't be leaving. But then, okay, take it from that angle. What if all the allies unite, like you guys comment, kick US out? That we don't trust you, let's not share intelligence, let's not do anything. Sharing intelligence goes both ways, right? If we stop sharing, we stop receiving. If we stop receiving, we don't really know who United States shares this with, right? So you kind of need the entrance to it. And you also need the entry to Trump's mind and his mindset. So if you kick him out and he has then a full open corridor to align with people he genuinely admires, Putin and Modi and Xi and all this, maybe not directly Xi, but, Modi at least and Putin and all that, right? Because Putin can play both ways and say, let's unite against Xi, right? And I think that's what he's saying, because we see this development in the Arctic and this meeting in Anchorage, right? So let's unite against China. And so Putin plays both ways and sort of like, has two mamas, so to speak, financially. Now, the point is, with NATO, they can't kick United States out because that gives Trump green light to fully align with Russia, and then then US troops and military bases and all these collaborations, like United States is on paper protecting United Kingdom, right? When it comes to nuclear activities. We're not doing it with France, but we are, right? So in case anything is needed for UK, we are providing the ability. And so all of that becomes then very tricky. So they try to do the balancing act. They were thinking that coming here, zhuzhing him up, talking about how wonderful and smart and beautiful he is would work and extend this. But we see that Putin is pulling him in his own way. So with NATO, is there an alliance? Not really, because the main part that built this alliance is looking the other way. And so now what they can do, and you guys often, I see in the comments, you question, like, can EU unite against EU is an economic union. NATO is a defense alliance. So, okay, ultimately what Zelensky did predict a couple of years ago is that if US vetoes Article 5 or any other country, ultimately in Europe, historically speaking, each country will start getting all the supplies back and trying to prepare for war one by one. And that is what Putin heavily counts on, because, united we stand, divided we fall. And so if you think about Baltic states, can they withhold Russia? Maybe not really. Romania, Poland alone, questionable. And so all of those things, right? And what Trump tries to do, or at least that's what it manifests in. Maybe he's doing this consciously, unconsciously. That's another question. But he is putting the division inside Europe, right? I'm not doing this because you are not pushing Hungary and Slovakia. So what next? In the European Union, they're going to start fighting Slovakia and Hungary. But the problem, all of this is, to finish it up, is that nobody is acting from the position of strength. Everyone is acting from position of fear. Because Europe slept for 80 years after World War II, just relying on the United States to do the rest. United States did, right? and fought different wars, and we found our oil under some different countries. All of a sudden, Venezuela might be falling onto this perspective. But the point is, we're not interested in Europe. Maybe Putin wants to do something, but we might let him do it because we're going to get in return something that we can do, maybe in the Caribbean, maybe Latin America, while she could have the Indo-Pacific. All those rhetorics and maybe conspiracy theories, they exist about the world division and all that. But factually, NATO is not united, because united without United States, they cannot defend themselves. Right? They have to ask permission in DC, I just told you, to sell something what they already have and own and paid for to Ukraine. That's the constellation here. Plus, they have access, direct access by our troops into their mainland. So they're trying to balance. What this will result in, I'll let you figure it out, but we're going to be documenting it. But Ukraine is that dam, that part that holds Putin away from Europe. If that goes and they go one by one, just watch. If Poland falls and then the Baltic states, Germany and France and England will start gathering their supplies to defend themselves, or seeing what that's going to go to. So that's why Zelensky was pushing this narrative, defend the beast in Ukraine, so the beast will understand that everybody is united, not on paper, not in hugs, not in those meetings and speeches and condemning the letters, condemning everything, that you physically are united, that if one of you, and even Ukraine, pretty large country in Europe, if they are invaded, you all come together, like those memes, right? The little bubbles with different like flags. I don't know if you saw it, like how they describe Europe, that they unite and they defend the beast, kill all the three heads. So the beast crawls back. And then you win time till the beast grows the heads, and you can also use the time to produce your military capacity. And then the beast will know you're strong, so I will not dare. That's what Zelensky was trying to explain, but people don't really want to until they have to. And here we are. Okay? I hope it helps in some way. Ignacio says, I get the impression that when Russia invades Poland, Trump will keep us out of it, showing neutrality. Yeah. Tony, thank you. Yep, extremely helpful and insightful. And yes, fear is the issue right now all around except Ukraine. Yeah, thank you. And Ukraine also was there. I remember the speech by Zelensky. Oh, we're going to go to barbecue. Don't worry, whatever. Meanwhile, we saw troops at the border. You wake up and your perspective changes so hard when stuff starts not just flying above your head, but falling on your head and your loved ones. When you face this, like run or stay, he stayed. This is, I think this is the biggest achievement historically for Zelensky. Remember, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. He stayed, he still stays. This is, the biggest thing you can do for your country. And he's fighting, and Ukrainians are fighting. But the problem is, the longer you do this, and others are starting to prepare for fight as well, you fall, others start coming in, and nobody willing to defend the beast on your land, right? There's the saying, when elephants fight, the grass gets destroyed. So Ukraine said, okay, let us play grass, fight. But nobody is willing to do this because then again, we're fearing nuclear attacks. Today, the Russian state propaganda was talking about doing a targeted nuclear attack on Poland if one drone is shut down. So this is now being planted in the Russian media. This is always carefully planted by Kremlin. They see how people will react. And also, if you hear it once, if you hear it twice, if you hear it 3 times, it becomes a reality. So when they do it, then it's nothing new. And this is the same approach, for instance, Trump administration is using, right? Memphis, Chicago, Memphis, Chicago, Memphis, Chicago. When they go to Memphis and Chicago, are you going to be surprised? Not really, because you've heard it. Quick news. Trump family crypto venue got Emirati investment soon after UAE was promised access to AI chips. Reported by New York Times. Heavy federal force in DC has diverted agents from routine work. Some have quit. But Trump has again threatened to take over DC's police force if they don't comply with immigration and ICE and all that. Now, Trump approved National Guard deployment to Memphis, with Chicago next. Local Democrats leaders oppose. Florida now effectively allows open carry, the last GOP-led state to do so. And the Air Force has begun modifying the Boeing 747 donated by Qatar as a potential interim Air Force One. And if you're interested, Apple's iOS update with the new liquid glass design is live for iPhone 11 Plus. Now, Trump is also suing New York Times for libel. He says that for years they have been harassing him and his family and all of this. And all this comes essentially because the Times published reports about sexually suggestive note given to Jeffrey Epstein to his 50th birthday that appears to bear Trump's signature. Trump and his aides deny any involvement. And so as a payback, they're going to get a lawsuit. As to federal bench, so the U.S. Senate confirmed Stephen Meron, Trump's nominee, to fill a short-term Federal Reserve vacancy just ahead of tomorrow's expected rate decision. Big day. Meanwhile, appeals court ruled that Fed Governor Lisa Cook can remain on the board while pursuing her lawsuit challenging Trump's attempt to remove her. Now, U.S. Army participated in the drills in Japan. So September 15th, U.S. Army unveiled Typhoon mid-range missile system in Japan for the first time. The system was featured in Resolute Dragon, the annual U.S.-Japan bilateral exercise involving 19,000 troops and focused on maritime defense and protection. Now, Musk is buying or has bought now $1 billion worth of Tesla stock, 2.57 million shares in his first open market buy since February 2020. The move boosted Tesla shares 3.26% on Monday, erasing 2025 losses and leaving the stock up 85% from its April low. Investors cheered. Musk is about to become world's first trillionaire after they're going to vote on his massive pay package next week. But not everybody cheered, and surprisingly, who spoke out? I'll let you guess. You'll never guess. Pope Leo. Pope Leo criticized the gap between executive and worker pay, and he commented on this piece of news saying, quote, "If that is the only thing that has value anymore, then we are in big trouble." Amen to that. Chobani partners with Ivanka Trump. The intention is glorious. We'll see what that will result in. Chobani is partnering with Ivanka's Planet Harvest to combat food waste. The initiative buys whole harvests of fruit directly from farmers for use in Chobani products. Partnership is designed to support both farmers and the environment. Now, quick global news. White House says Trump will sign major nuclear energy agreements with the UK during his state visit, including new plans to power AI and reduce reliance on Russian nuclear materials. Okay, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is traveling to Mexico City September 18 to 19 to strengthen bilateral ties. And as to TikTok deal, rumored that this group of investors would be headlined by Larry Ellison, the Oracle's co-founder, who also is, about to sponsor his son's acquisition of Paramount and Warner Brothers. Now, China has invited Trump to Beijing, but Financial Times reports a likely meeting is at October's APEC summit in South Korea. So in October, Trump will travel to South Korea and probably meet with Xi Jinping if she wants to. Now, Gaza genocide ruling, the UN has officially recognized Israel's operation in Gaza as genocide. And Israel announced today it's expanding its ground assault on Gaza City just hours after Rubio left, and Rubio was advocating for, releasing hostages and whatever. So this is what's going on. More than 300,000 Palestinians have already fled. 500,000 remain. Israel Defense Minister declared Gaza is burning. Shaking from blasts was felt 25 miles away. The Israeli military said troops will surround Gaza City from all sides. Rubio said that Trump wants the war finished. This is only a short window to achieve a truce. What truce are they talking about? Netanyahu said Israel would prefer Hamas to surrender. We will take over and destroy Hamas' stronghold in Gaza City. The UN Commission of Inquiry said today that Israel's actions in Gaza constitute genocide under 1948 Genocide Convention. Of course, Israeli Foreign Ministry rejected the finding. Now, as to Qatar, after Israel's attack in Doha last week, Gulf leaders, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and others convened and issued a joint statement condemning Israel's vowing legal and effective measures. Meanwhile, Rubio pledged that U.S. will finalize enhanced military partnership deal with Qatar in response. So we're going to pay up. Other news, UN Human Rights Council Commission accused South Sudan's government in diverting billions through elite corruption. An example would be $1.7 billion paid to firms linked to the vice president to work never completed. And South Sudan's justice minister rejected the report, saying it does not match official data. Now, for the first time in 3 decades, Washington, D.C. has designated Colombia as the country as failing to cooperate on anti-narcotics efforts. The Trump administration granted a waiver to you, so U.S. aid will not be cut. We're talking about $100,000 or $100 million, of U.S.-supported stake, and Colombia's ambassador defended the country's record, saying the designation was unfair. Okay, pass right through it. All right, so today in history, what I want to really mention, I mean, you can read it in newsletters. If you're not subscribed, what you doing? It's free. If you're on Substack, it's Onest, O-N-E-S-T, look for it. Daily newsletters are released right before I go live, Monday through Friday, and then on Sunday we have No Politics edition. And so what I want to focus on today in history is that it's Independence Day in Mexico. So happy Independence Day. It marks the anniversary of Hidalgo's call for rebellion that set the country on the path to independence. And Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, was preparing for the official ceremonies and shared this video that I wanted to share with you. Take a look.
Mexicanas, mexicanos, ¡viva la independencia! ¡Viva Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla! ¡Viva Josefa Ortiz Tellez Girón! ¡Viva José María Morelos y Pavón! ¡Viva Leona Vicario! ¡Viva
People respond when you don't push them, right? So you don't have to be North Korea to have so many people cheer with you and for you. It's a takeaway. All right, Viva. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be live tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday because I will be at the UN. I will put videos. I'll tell you what the constellation will be, but I cannot physically go live there unless they allow me. So we have to play it by ear on Thursday, but Friday I'll be live. If I skip Thursday, I'll be live on Saturday. Okay, that's the deal. So thank you for being here. Keep your head on a swivel. Watch something that enlightens you and boosts your well-being and confidence and whatever. Keep your head on a swivel. Okay, we have cultural curating culture. So if you haven't seen this episode or this episode about Malcolm X, which is 7 minutes, this one is 44 minutes. This is 7 minutes, okay? Please watch it. And if you can like this, subscribe, share, that would be tremendous, okay? So a bigly thank you. Thank you so much. Have a peaceful night and see you tomorrow. I appreciate you. Bye.